Across our planet, scattered like forgotten memories, lie places that were once vibrant hubs of human activity. Cities, towns, and settlements, each pulsating with the rhythms of daily existence with laughter, industry, and dreams. These were the stages upon which countless human stories unfolded, the very heartlands of communities. They were built with purpose, with hope for a future that seemed assured, their streets echoing with the sounds of a civilization in full bloom, a testament to our remarkable ability to shape the world around us. Yet today, these places stand silent. The echoes have faded, replaced by an unnerving and profound quiet. What were once bustling streets are now empty corridors. Homes that once sheltered families are now hollow shells. And public squares that once hosted celebrations are now stages for nature's slow, inexorable reclamation. These are the ghost towns of our world, monuments to sudden change, to tragedy, to the shifting fortunes of humanity. They are places where time, for a moment, seems to have stopped, leaving behind a haunting tableau of a life abruptly interrupted. Join me as we journey to these forsaken corners of the globe. We will walk their deserted avenues and peer into their abandoned buildings, not merely to observe their decay, but to listen to the stories they still tell. In their silence, there is a powerful narrative about resilience, about loss, and about the enduring and sometimes fragile relationship between humanity and the world we inhabit. These are not just ruins, they are classrooms of history, preserved by their very abandonment. In the north of Ukraine, nestled amongst dense forests, lies a city unlike any other: Pripyat. This was not some ancient settlement but a modern marvel of Soviet planning, a city of the future built in 1970. It was an Atomgrad, a nuclear city, created to serve the nearby Chernobyl nuclear power plant. Its residents were young, well-educated, and full of optimism. They enjoyed amenities rare in the Soviet Union supermarkets, a cultural palace, a hospital, and pristine schools for their children. The city's population swelled to nearly 50,000 people, its wide boulevards lined with apartment blocks and blossoming trees. It was a picture of progress, a symbol of humanity's mastery over the atom. The nearby power plant was the source of their prosperity, a seemingly benign giant providing energy and purpose. Life here was predictable, comfortable, and secure. The future of Pripyat, and the families who called it home, seemed as bright and powerful as the nuclear energy it served. Then, on the 26th of April, 1986, that future was extinguished in an instant. A catastrophic explosion in reactor number 4 of the power plant tore a hole in the night sky, releasing a plume of radioactive isotopes. This was an invisible enemy, silent and deadly, carried on the gentle spring breeze. For the residents of Pripyat, the first signs were subtle: a strange metallic taste in the air, a beautiful yet sinister rainbow-hued glow above the reactor. They were initially told it was a minor incident, nothing to be alarmed about. Children played outside, weddings went ahead, and life continued its normal course for a precious day and a half. But the poison was spreading, seeping into the soil, the water, and the very air they breathed. The state, faced with an unprecedented disaster, was forced to act. The announcement came suddenly, a temporary evacuation, they were told. Buses, hundreds of them, lined the streets. The residents were instructed to pack only what was essential, just documents and a small amount of food for what they believed would be a 3-day absence. They were assured they would return. They locked their doors, leaving behind their pets, their photographs, their entire lives, frozen in a moment of hurried departure. They looked back at their homes, their city, with the expectation of a swift reunion. They never came back. The 3 days stretched into weeks, then months, then an eternity. The scale of the contamination was far greater than anyone had imagined. An exclusion zone was established, a perimeter of 30 kilometers sealing Pripyat off from the rest of the world. The city became a ghost, its residents scattered across the Soviet Union, forever exiled from the lives they once knew. Today, Pripyat is a haunting museum of the late Soviet era. School books lie open on desks awaiting students who will never arrive. Dolls are strewn across the floors of abandoned kindergartens, their plastic eyes staring into the void. In the city's amusement park, a Ferris wheel, which was due to open for the May Day celebrations just days after the disaster, stands as a skeletal icon against the gray sky, a symbol of joy that never was. The silence here is profound, broken only by the wind whistling through shattered panes of glass and the calls of birds. It is a silence filled with the ghosts of laughter and conversation. The city's motto, displayed proudly on a building, reads, "Let the atom be a worker, not a soldier." In Pripyat, this line now reads as a tragic, bitter irony, a stark reminder of a dream that turned into a devastating nightmare. Nature, however, is indifferent to human tragedy. In our absence, it has begun its patient work of reclamation. Trees now grow inside buildings, their roots breaking through concrete floors. Moss carpets the once pristine boulevards. Wild boar, wolves, and deer roam the deserted streets, turning this monument to human failure into a unique and unlikely wildlife sanctuary. To walk through Pripyat is to walk through a memory. It is a chillingly preserved artifact of a lost world, a powerful and sobering testament to the catastrophic potential of our own creations. It stands not just as a memorial to the victims of Chernobyl, but as a permanent warning to all of humanity, a story of hubris and consequence written in concrete and decay. Off the coast of Nagasaki, in the East China Sea, a tiny island rises from the waves. From a distance, its silhouette is unmistakable, resembling a great gray warship. This is Hashima Island, known to the world as Gunkanjima, or Battleship Island. It is one of the most densely populated places ever to have existed on Earth, and today, it is utterly devoid of human life. Its story is one of industrial ambition, immense hardship, and eventual obsolescence. The island's fate was sealed in 1887 when the Mitsubishi Corporation discovered a rich seam of coal beneath the seabed. To extract this black gold, a city was built upon this barren rock. A forest of concrete apartment blocks, some of the first of their kind in Japan, sprang up to house the thousands of miners and their families. The island, barely a kilometer long, became a self-contained world. Life on Hashima was a study in extreme density. There was no soil, no greenery to speak of. Rooftop gardens were the only concession to nature, yet it was a complete vertical city. It had its own schools, a hospital, shops, a cinema, and even a pachinko parlor. Narrow stairways and covered corridors connected the buildings, creating a complex, labyrinthine community shielded from the frequent typhoons that battered the coast. For decades, Hashima was a powerhouse of Japan's industrialization, fueling its ships and factories. However, this progress came at a terrible cost. During the Second World War, thousands of forced laborers, primarily from Korea and China, were brought to the island. They endured brutal conditions, working in the deep, hot, and dangerous undersea mines for little to no pay. Many perished from exhaustion, malnutrition, and accidents. The island's history is therefore a dual narrative, one of technological achievement and community for its Japanese residents, and another of profound suffering and exploitation for its prisoners of war. These stories are etched into the very concrete of the island, a dark undercurrent to its tale of industrial might. The ghosts of Hashima are not just of abandonment but of immense human pain. The end for Hashima came not with a bang, but with a slow economic shift. By the 1960s, petroleum was replacing coal as Japan's primary energy source. The mines that had been the island's sole reason for being were becoming unprofitable. The lifeblood of the community was draining away. In January 1974, Mitsubishi officially announced the closure of the mine. The exodus was swift. Just as they had arrived with the promise of work, the residents now left with its disappearance. Within 3 months, the once teeming island was completely empty. Families packed their belongings, locked their doors, and sailed away, leaving behind a fully furnished city. Televisions, furniture, newspapers, all were left as if their owners had just stepped out for a moment. Today, Hashima is a crumbling ruin, a concrete skeleton being relentlessly consumed by the sea and the salt-laced wind. The seawall, which once protected the city, is breached in places, allowing the waves to gnaw at the foundations of the buildings. Inside the apartments, time has stood still. A calendar from 1974 might still hang on a wall, a silent marker of the last days. The typhoons that the residents once sheltered from are now the island's primary architects of decay. They rip through the fragile structures, peeling away walls, and revealing the intimate spaces of homes that have been sealed for decades. The once impregnable fortress is slowly surrendering, its concrete flesh being stripped back to the bone by the forces of nature. Visiting Hashima is a deeply moving experience. It is a city of ghosts, a stark monument to the rise and fall of industrial empires and the human stories caught in their wake. It reminds us that even the most solid and imposing of our creations are ultimately transient. their permanence an illusion in the face of economic change and the relentless power of the natural world. In the rolling hills of Pennsylvania's coal country, a peculiar phenomenon exists. Steam and noxious gases vent from cracks in the earth, the ground is warm to the touch, and roads buckle and split as if from some unseen pressure. This is the landscape of Centralia, a town with a fire burning beneath its feet. A fire that has been burning for over 60 years and may continue to burn for centuries more. Centralia was once a typical American mining town. Founded in the mid-19th century, its existence was tied to the rich veins of anthracite coal that lay just beneath the surface. For a century, it was a bustling community. Generations of families lived and worked here, building a town with churches, schools, a post office, and a strong sense of local identity. The mines provided a livelihood, albeit a dangerous one. The town's destiny took a dramatic turn in May of 1962. The exact cause remains a subject of debate, but the most widely accepted theory is that a routine fire, set to burn trash in an abandoned strip mine pit, was not properly extinguished. The embers found their way into the labyrinthine network of old coal mines that riddled the earth beneath Centralia. It ignited a seam of anthracite coal. At first, no one grasped the severity of the situation. Mine fires were not uncommon in the region. Attempts were made to douse it, to dig it out, to smother it. But this fire was different. The network of tunnels provided it with a near-endless supply of fuel and oxygen. It was an underground inferno, spreading slowly and unstoppably through the subterranean world. For years, the residents of Centralia lived with their hidden enemy. The signs were subtle at first, the smell of sulfur, wisps of smoke from backyards. But as the fire grew, the danger became terrifyingly real. Carbon monoxide, a silent killer, began to seep into basements. The ground became unstable, prone to sudden and catastrophic subsidence. The turning point came in 1981, when a 12-year-old boy, Todd Domboski, was nearly swallowed by the earth. A sinkhole, 150 feet deep, suddenly opened beneath his feet in his grandmother's backyard. He managed to cling to a tree root until his cousin pulled him to safety. The incident made national headlines and exposed the true peril the residents were facing. It became clear that the town was no longer safe for human habitation. The federal government, after years of deliberation, allocated more than $40 million to relocate the residents. Most families accepted the buyout, taking the money to start new lives elsewhere. They were refugees of a slow-motion disaster, forced to abandon the only homes they had ever known. The process of erasure began. Houses were demolished, lots were cleared, and the town was slowly wiped from the map. The state claimed ownership of the properties through eminent domain. By the 1990s, only a handful of determined residents remained, fighting a legal battle to stay in their homes, defiant in the face of the government and the fire. Today, Centralia is a shadow of its former self. Only a few houses remain, scattered amongst overgrown lots and buckled roads. The stretch of Route 61 that once ran through the town is now a ruin, a cracked and graffiti-covered testament to the heat below, known locally as the Graffiti Highway. It has become an unlikely tourist attraction, a canvas for visitors who come to witness this strange, simmering landscape. The fire still burns. Geologists estimate there is enough coal beneath Centralia to fuel the blaze for another 250 years. It is a geological event on a human timescale, a permanent disaster. Centralia's story is a unique one, not of sudden catastrophe or economic decline, but of a persistent, creeping threat that slowly consumed a town from below, leaving behind a scarred landscape and a legacy of stubborn resilience. In the heart of the Namib, one of the world's oldest and driest deserts, a surreal sight emerges from the sand. The ornate German-style houses of a once opulent town stand half swallowed by the encroaching dunes. This is Kolmanskop, a ghost town born from a diamond rush, now being reclaimed by the very desert that birthed its wealth. Its story is a dazzling flash of fortune, followed by a slow, sandy demise. Its existence began with a moment of pure chance. In 1908, a railway worker named Zacharias Lawala was clearing sand from the tracks when he spotted a peculiar, shiny stone. He showed it to his German supervisor, August Stauch, who suspected it might be a diamond. His suspicion was correct. The stone was not just a diamond, it was one of many, lying scattered on the surface, easily collected by hand. The news triggered a frantic diamond rush. Fortune seekers from across Germany and beyond descended upon this remote corner of German Southwest Africa. The German government quickly declared a vast restricted area, the Sperrgebiet, to control the diamond fields. Within this zone, at the center of the frenzy, the town of Kolmanskop was born, seemingly overnight. Fueled by immense diamond wealth, Kolmanskop blossomed into an unlikely oasis of German culture and luxury in the middle of the desolate desert. No expense was spared. Grand homes were built, complete with ballrooms and verandas, their materials and furnishings shipped all the way from Europe. The town boasted a hospital with the first X-ray machine in the southern hemisphere, used not just for patients, but to screen workers suspected of swallowing diamonds. Life here was surreal. Residents enjoyed a butcher, a baker, a post office, and a general store. They drank fresh water which was shipped in barrels from 100 kilometers away. There was a magnificent community hall with a theater, a gymnasium, and a bowling alley. They even had a swimming pool and produced their own ice in a dedicated factory, an almost absurd luxury in the searing desert heat. For a brief, glittering period, Kolmanskop was one of the richest towns in Africa. The diamonds were so plentiful that they could sometimes be found simply by crawling on hands and knees in the sand after a strong wind. But this incredible bounty was finite. By the late 1920s, the easily accessible diamonds were becoming depleted. The town's fate was sealed with the discovery of a new, far richer diamond deposit 270 kilometers to the south, right on the coast. The geological forces that had created the Kolmanskop diamonds had carried even more of them further downstream. The focus of the mining operations shifted, and Kolmanskop's decline began as quickly as its rise. The residents began to leave, drawn by the promise of greater fortunes elsewhere. They abandoned their homes, their furniture, and their lavish amenities. The hospital closed its doors, the bowling alley fell silent, and the theater hosted its final performance. By 1956, the town was completely deserted, left to the mercy of the wind and the sand. The Namib Desert, which had been held at bay by the town's inhabitants, began its patient work of reclamation. The wind, a constant presence here, relentlessly carried sand into the abandoned buildings. Dunes poured through broken windows and doorways, filling rooms from floor to ceiling with waves of orange sand. Today, Kolmanskop is an artist's dream and a historian's treasure. The dry climate has preserved the buildings remarkably well, even as the desert consumes them. To walk through these houses is to wade through time itself. A bathtub filled with sand, a kitchen with its painted walls still vibrant, a crumbling wallpaper pattern, each detail tells a story of a life abruptly left behind. It is a place of stark and haunting beauty. The contrast between the elegant European architecture and the encroaching elemental power of the desert is breathtaking. Kolmanskop stands as a powerful symbol of the transient nature of wealth and the ultimate, enduring power of the natural world. It is a ghost town born of greed, now a monument to impermanence. In the gentle, rolling countryside of central France lies a village that is not merely abandoned, but martyred, Oradour-sur-Glane. Unlike the other places we have visited, its emptiness was not caused by natural disaster, economic change, or environmental hazard. It was born from an act of unimaginable brutality. This village is not a ruin, it is a shrine, deliberately preserved as it was left on a single, horrific day. Before the 10th of June 1944, Oradour-sur-Glane was an ordinary peaceful village. It was a quiet rural community with a tram line that connected it to the nearby city of Limoges. Its residents were farmers, artisans, and shopkeepers. Children went to school, families gathered in the church, and life followed the gentle rhythms of the French countryside, seemingly insulated from the horrors of the Second World War raging elsewhere. That day, the war came to Oradour. A detachment of the Waffen-SS, part of the Das Reich division heading north to fight the Allied landings in Normandy, entered the village. The reason for their action is still debated. Perhaps a case of mistaken identity, a reprisal for partisan activity in the region, or simply an act of terror. Whatever the motive, the consequence was the same. The soldiers rounded up the entire population. The men were separated and taken to several barns and garages around the village. The women and children, over 400 of them, were herded into the village church. The commander gave an order. The soldiers opened fire on the men, shooting them in the legs so they could not escape, before setting the barns alight. Inside the church, the soldiers placed an incendiary device. After it detonated, filling the sacred space with smoke and fire, they threw grenades and fired machine guns into the terrified crowd of women and children. Anyone who tried to escape through the windows or doors was shot. Only one woman, Marguerite Roufanche, managed to survive by climbing out of a rear window and hiding in a nearby garden until she could be rescued. In the space of a few hours, 643 innocent civilians, including over 200 children, were systematically murdered. The soldiers then looted and burned the entire village, destroying every house, every shop, every symbol of the life that had existed there just that morning. Oradour-sur-Glane was wiped from existence, its people erased in a frenzy of calculated violence. After the war, a new village of Oradour-sur-Glane was built nearby for the few survivors who had been away on that fateful day. But the French president, Charles de Gaulle, ordered that the original martyred village should be left untouched. It was to be preserved exactly as the perpetrators had left it, an Oradour Souviens-toi, a permanent silent memorial. Today, to walk through the ruins of Oradour is to step back into that moment of horror. The streets are lined with the burnt-out shells of buildings. Rusted cars, including the Peugeot of the village doctor, still sit where they were parked. Sewing machines lie amidst the rubble of a tailor's shop. The tram tracks still run through the center of the village, leading to nowhere. The most poignant sight is the church. Its stone walls still stand, but the roof is gone, and the interior is a hollowed-out space of sorrow. The melted bell, which fell during the fire, rests near the altar. It is a place of profound and heavy silence, a testament to an atrocity that defies comprehension. Oradour-sur-Glane is more than a ghost town, it is a conscious act of remembrance. It serves as a stark and visceral history lesson, a physical manifestation of the depths of human cruelty. It forces us to confront the reality of war, not as a distant concept, but as a devastating force that can obliterate ordinary lives in an instant. Its preservation is a solemn promise to the dead that they will not be forgotten. The silence of Oradour speaks louder than any words, a perpetual reminder of the fragility of peace and the terrible cost of hatred. It is a wound on the landscape of France that has been deliberately left open, so that we may never, ever forget. From the radioactive quiet of Pripyat to the sandy graves of Kolmanskop and the solemn silence of Oradour-sur-Glane, each of these places tells a unique and powerful story. They are echoes of lives interrupted, of ambitions thwarted, and of tragedies that should never be forgotten. They stand as silent witnesses to the forces that shape our world, be it technological disaster, economic shifts, the slow creep of nature, or the devastating impact of human conflict. Though their residents are long gone, their presence is palpable in the objects left behind and the structures that still stand against the odds. These ghost towns are more than just eerie destinations for the curious. They are profound reminders of our own impermanence and the fragility of the worlds we build. They challenge us to reflect on progress, memory, and our responsibility to both the past and the future. In their emptiness, we find a space for contemplation, a chance to understand the narratives of humanity, not through its triumphs, but through what it has left behind. The stories are there, waiting in the silence for those who are willing to listen. Which of these haunting landscapes resonated most with you? Was it the sudden, tragic emptiness of one, or the slow, inexorable decay of another? I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments below, and if you wish to continue these journeys into the forgotten and mysterious corners of our planet, do consider subscribing. There are always more stories waiting to be told, in the silent places where life once was.